Hello, my name's Bev and I'm the author of the book Please Eat, A Mother's Struggle to Free Her Teenage Son from Anorexia, which describes our family's battle with the deadly eating disorder, anorexia nervosa, which my teenage son Ben developed back in 2009 when he was just 15 years old. This post from the 26th of August 2011 talks about a very bizarre experience which we had one day that summer, and it's called Odd Experience. Ben strides through the fat camp. Every summer, a teenager's residential weight loss camp hires the school premises, and yesterday, en route to meeting with his tutor to talk about his AS exam resits, etc., and before I could stop him, Ben ended up striding right through the middle of it. It was a strange and unsettling experience. Here was a teenager who was desperately trying to put on weight, heading right through a crowd of teenagers who were desperately trying to lose it. I'm not sure what I feel about that. And today, on the news, they're talking about health professionals demanding that the government starts taxing junk food in a bid to combat the rising problem of obesity. The report said that 2/3 of today's teenagers are obese, and this number is growing all the time. Yet we all know that at the other end of the spectrum, there is a group of teenagers who are suffering from anorexia nervosa, and this number is also growing all the time. But there was no mention of this on the news report, and I don't see any of this obsession with healthy eating being geared towards helping teenagers that go on to develop anorexia and other eating disorders. So it's a weird kind of balance. At one end, we have teenagers whose parents would love nothing better than to remove all the nutritional labelling on packaging so that eating disorder-prone children can't examine the calorie and fat content in minutiae. And for the government to stop all this talk about unhealthy eating, which no doubt reinforces some kind of distorted logic in the mind of an eating disorder sufferer. The same goes for all these programmes on the TV that focus on getting fat people thin, not to mention the massive banners up at school during the summer term advertising the fact that the fat camp, as it's always referred to, will be taking over the school during the vacation. And at the other end, we have a rising problem with obesity. There's all this nutritional, so-called healthy eating and so-called fat camp emphasis appears unable to stop. And I imagine taxing junk food won't suddenly make people reach for the Weight Watchers ready meals. Yet to my son Ben, and no doubt many others, this reinforces the distorted thinking that tells him that all the food they're talking about is bad and must continue to be avoided, or he'll end up like the teenagers he walked amongst yesterday. Food for thought, so to speak. I remember that being a really bizarre experience. There were signs all over the school saying things like run and don't walk and other motivational messages that were supposed to make the overweight teenagers feel encouraged to lose weight. And it was really strange watching my very thin son literally walk through a crowd of teenagers who were walking in the other direction. They were all quite large, and he was quite thin, and it's one of those bizarre situations that stand out in your mind, almost like a snapshot. Very weird, very weird. And it also brings me round to a problem which is quite recent here in 2022 and 2023, and that's the government forcing many food outlets, restaurants, cafes, pubs, etc., to list the calories alongside everything they sell, all the meals, all the snacks, etc., which is obviously aimed at helping people to make so-called wise decisions on what they choose to eat when they go out for a meal. But of course, things like this are like a red rag to a bull when it comes to young people with eating disorders who are going out for a meal. I did complain to our local pub, but I was told that there's nothing they could do about it, that it was now law and they had to do it. But if we specifically requested, we could get a menu without the calorie content written all over it. I haven't tried that yet, but that's what they said. But even so, it's yet another spanner in the works for eating disorder recovery, in my opinion. Anyway, thank you for listening. You'll find a link below to my blog, and you'll also find a link to my website where you can download free PDFs of my blog, and also a link to Amazon where you can buy a copy of my book.